I thank you for that introduction. First spoke to the Chamber of Commerce in 1989, gave a city speech. And over the years, the public's been very good to me, and there's been recognition for different things accomplished. But I always keep in mind the line from the movie Chinatown, that old buildings, prostitutes, and politicians become respectable if they last long enough. And I do have to say, there's one line in that bio we have to change where it talks about a frequent commentator in local, national, international media. And I was being introduced at the Kiwanis Club, Golden K, at the beginning of this year for the state of Sydney. And the gentleman, Ken, who was doing the introduction, read that, and he turns to me and he says, "I've never ever heard you." So that's how you learn how to keep your perspective in this business. And I do say, looking back, that I've seen such an evolution in the community. And when I talk community, I talk Sarnia-Lambton. And my message to you today is really focused on the message you take out of this place today. And one of the things that I've come to learn is that if you don't have faith in the future, if you don't have faith in the future, you have no strength today. You absolutely do not. And, you know, as this community evolves, and as we change, I think of Wayne Gretzky, that great Canadian philosopher, who, when he was asked about how he played hockey, he said, "When some play to the puck, I play to where it's going to be." And I want you to think about that in the context of what we've been trying to do here to change the economic strategy of this area. It has been recognizing, as Steve talked about, the existing strengths and what's happening there, which is remarkable when you think of what was going on in that industry just a decade ago. It has strengthened, it is more productive, and it is supporting us in our direction on biofuels and alternative fuels. Even in the media today announcing 50,000 square feet of research space on the former Dow site, with a pilot plant perhaps to come. We are constantly being approached by organizations, companies, looking at the cluster effect that's happening in Sarnia-Lambton. And that's, in the past, everyone's always been elephant hunting, looking for the big auto plants, looking for all the big operations that might bring in 1,000 or 1,500 jobs. And we do the same thing, but we're realistic. The more we can develop a cluster in this community of different businesses, 25, 50 to 100 jobs, the more we strengthen the community. And next Friday, in this very same room, the Economic Partnership will outline to you in detail, I will not do that today, in detail some of our strategies for the next 3 years. And there's existing strategies that will be strengthened. There are other strategies that are new. And that involves food production, healthcare, and some other directions we think we have some strengths. Some of the key things that we need to focus on is continuing to strengthen our existing business community and supporting our labor community. It is often forgotten that this community is probably one of the top in this country for that collaborative relationship. And even yesterday, George Belay and myself were meeting with a fairly significant possible investment from out of the community. And it's one of the things that we try on. We talk about the project agreements, how labor and business come together and work together to come up with a plan that we can then use as a significant incentive, and it certainly is a significant incentive. The other area that is really important, and it was in this room, but it was in the previous name, about 10 years ago, Pat Davis and I, she was the warden at the time, I think probably shocked the community a little bit, because we said the number one issue that we saw was newcomer attraction, immigrant attraction, and building up our population. We know, as like most Canadian cities, the birth rate is not doing it. But when I look back at what happened since then with the local immigration partnership, with the efforts by the economic partnership, this last census showed we had reversed the cycle of population decline. And my goal to you on looking at the next census, there are some that say we should plan for very modest growth. And that's throughout the county, and there are some significant issues in some of the smaller county communities on population decline. I think we should take this last census and use that as the benchmark for the one 5 years from now. The one 5 years from now that we should be looking at 5 to 7% growth. And some will say that that maybe is not realistic. I think what that does by setting a goal that is not unrealistic, but doable, then we can hold ourselves in the political, business, labor community, social service community accountable to meeting that goal, because it's a true benchmark. And I do believe it's achievable with all the initiatives underway. There are other areas, and I can just digest to, and Bob Bailey's here today, I can just talk a little bit about provincial politics. And there's one observation. I grew up as a partisan. It used to be an organized political party. It's now called the Liberal Party of Canada. But I'll tell you the one evolution personally that has really changed me is I absolutely hate partisanship anymore. And if you look what's going on in this province right now at Queen's Park, the chicken dance of calling the election or not calling the election, who is that serving? It's absolutely not serving anyone in this room or anyone in this province. And when you have an economy that's gone through some significant structural changes, 300,000 jobs lost in manufacturing, 600,000 people unemployed in this province right now, why could not the three leaders sit down and talk about, these are the things we agreed to, these are the things we don't agree on, what can we do together? That's exactly what we have done in this community of Sarnia-Lambton. Certainly we still have philosophical different agreements, which is good, you need that. And you need that between business and labor and government. But there's a sense of purpose, a community-based purpose of what we want to accomplish. I do not sense that. And where I feel really disenfranchised, I joked a few weeks ago on London radio about maybe Southwestern should separate from the rest of Ontario. And I'm not so sure anymore it should be a joke. Because if you look what's happened here, lack of consultation, whether it be the jail closing, and I really want to point to the Hiawatha, removing the slots. Now, I'm not the smartest guy, but the Ontario government in 2010, and I don't know if you know this or not, spent $46 million subsidizing the casinos in Niagara and the one in Windsor. $46 million. Last year, even with the city money, the sharing with the racetrack and with the horsemen, this track paid $20 million to Queen's Park. And they're going to close it. Only in Ontario. What a pity that is. And you know, I could have accepted, as mayor of the city, as one involved in the original negotiations, if they'd said to us, you know, we're going to change gaming in Ontario in the next 2 or 3 years. If they'd actually even talked to us. So, well, you know, we don't like that you might close here, but why don't you work with us? And we keep those people employed. And then when you do have these new facilities, we may not like it, but we can accept doing that. We weren't even given that option. So if you think about this bizarre thing, they're going to take the slots out and employ over 100 people at the end of this month. They could have kept them there for the rest of this year. So when they compensate the racetrack owner and the municipality and the horsemen, they're doing it from that income, not going to some magic pot somewhere else. It just doesn't make any sense. There's an expression that's often used that the rising tide lifts all ships. And I used to believe that. But I have to say to you now, the rising tide is lifting a lot of ships in this community. But there are people stranded on some of those ships that we need to really work hard to get back into employment. And they're the people at the NCO Center. They're the people at Five Corrects. They're the people at Hiawatha, who, over the last 10 years, we were very successful in creating jobs in those areas of endeavor. And we need to keep on focusing on, while we have some great things going on and some positive economic development happening in the traditional industry, we need to get back to helping those people there. And when I say that, you know, what I come back to is, as I sort of come to a close here on that side of things, I don't want you to forget the social side of this community. I don't want you to forget, and I'm very appreciative of what Belle's done with your national leadership on dealing with people with mental health issues. You talked about all of us know someone in our families. A quarter of this room at some point have had depression. All of us have felt the pain of going through things. And we don't want to talk about it sometimes. It's extremely important we have that national dialogue, and Belle's helping to do that. It's extremely important that next Monday we're having the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario here, through the Chamber, through Rotary, to talk about, if you're a business owner, how would you like to grow your base by 25 or 30%? And all you got to do is make a few accommodations. You know, the unemployment rate for those who are disabled is 50%. When we had the Great Depression, the unemployment rate for the entire nation was 25%. So as we look at a skilled trade shortage in this country, what we should be looking at is, a lot of those workers are right before us. They're right before your eyes. You just have to open them and accept that we can build a better community by Sarnia-Lambton being the most inclusive community in this province, this country. And the county and the city and the private sector here have already shown that. Hiring more people, more summer students, for example, than many other communities in this country, but not the leader. So, you know, on May the 7th of 2014, we will celebrate 100 years as a city. That is by the way, I wasn't mayor at the time when it became a city. But it's a remarkable achievement. And so my message to you as I close here is, I go back to, if you don't believe in the future, you have no power in the present. And so you need to take that message, as Steve talked about, out of this place. You know the strength of this community. You know sometimes the reality when we lose jobs or we suffer with social issues. But you also know the promise of the community. And the promise is incredible when you look at how far we've come in the 100 years. All I can say is we celebrate, and I think it should be a celebration of not just 100 years, but 100 years ahead, is that we should make no small plans, have no small dreams, and celebrate 100 years of a community that has evolved into a true Renaissance city. Thank you.